Welcome back to another episode of How to Be Happy at Work. As always, I'm your host, Declan Edwards, and I'm fascinated by the topic of happiness in the workplace. I'm also deeply, deeply curious about what actually makes workplaces great. Not just on paper, but in the lived experience of the people who show up there every single day. In this episode of How to Be Happy at Work, I'm grateful and proud to be joined by Rebecca Moulynox, who is the CEO of Great Place to Work Australia and New Zealand. Rebecca and her team survey tens of thousands of employees across Australia and New Zealand each and every year, which means they have a front row seat to what makes employees happy and to what makes workplaces great. They get to see firsthand the trends that shape employee experience and what separates thriving workplaces from those that struggle to stand out in the crowd. In this episode, we dive into the data behind well-being, engagement, and tenure, and we explore why some organizations are struggling to retain top talent, whilst the others stand out as employers of choice in their field. Rebecca also shares her powerful insights on where businesses are still clinging to outdated models and ideas, and the critical but often under-invested in role of leadership development in navigating the new world of work. Whether you're listening to this as a leader, a culture builder, or someone who wants to help your workplace do better by its people, this is a must-listen conversation packed with insights, inspiration, and actionable advice and ideas. So without any further ado, let's get into it and learn how to become a great place to work. Rebecca, first and foremost, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here and giving up some of your time to share some of your experience and insights. I'm not going to lie, I've been particularly looking forward to this one since we first crossed paths on LinkedIn, and it's good timing because I know I'm speaking at the Great Place to Work event coming up.
Yes.
So good timing to jump on and have a chat about all things great places to work, employee experience, workplace happiness, the stuff that you and I live and breathe. But I want to dive in with the hard-hitting data first and foremost.
Yeah.
I know you've been sifting, or maybe drowning is a better word. I say sifting through the data or drowning in the data, but you've got so much data at Great Place to Work about what makes great organizations, what makes places enjoyable and thriving and flourishing from an employee experience perspective.
Yeah.
Are there any particular trends or things that you're already starting to find in the data for this year? Tell me more.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got, yes, I am drowning in data. That's absolutely the right word to talk about it. We surveyed 158,749 people in our 12-month survey period. So that's a lot of information that we gather. And we gather so much information around demographic cuts and types of jobs people have and industry. And so we have so much information. And there's a couple of really interesting trends coming through. So the first one I found really fascinating was no matter what you throw at Gen Z, they have no real intention to stay for a long time. So we've got the best workplaces, and we're looking at data from the absolute pinnacle, the best workplaces. And the intent to stay, so we ask a question around, do you intend to stay here for a long time? And no matter what those organizations are doing, their answers, and they don't get really high scores for that. They're still getting quite reasonable, but I wouldn't say high scores for Gen Z. But when you look at other generations, the more they're throwing at them, the more they're likely to stay. So we found it really interesting that ultimately we think, we hear organizations or people talk about Gen Z want purpose and they want all these things. But the fact is that purpose is a little bit like the entry ticket. And then you have to provide all of these other things to keep them engaged and wanting to be there. But still, they're probably not going to want to stay for a long time. And that we might just have to accept that turnover at a certain level is what's really going to be normal for this generation of people, and they're not going to stick around. So that was really interesting to see. Even the best workplaces are really struggling with getting their intent to stay, which was my first really interesting spot. My other one, which I thought was really interesting, was we've been looking at wellbeing data across the board for the last 6 years. And there's a really fascinating trend in our data when we cut it by gender and by age. So what we see across the board is that men have higher wellbeing scores than women in every single age bracket, except for 55 and above. And once you hit 55 and above, women actually have a much, much higher wellbeing score. And it happens every year, and it's not something that we've seen in any other countries. So Australia is a little bit different in that apparently women after the age of 55 are a lot happier in the workplace, and we don't really know why yet. So we're looking into that. So yeah, there's some
Mm.
really fascinating stuff coming through our data though.
I mean, they are. I mean, even just those two examples have got my mind spinning. My first thought on them, I would love to hear. Do you have any theories or hypotheses about what's sort of contributing to both of those findings? Like, A, the sort of, reduced length of tenure in Gen Z, but then also this finding on well-being differences between the sexes. Any theories or ideas?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, the well-being one was really interesting. We're actually doing this research project at Johns Hopkins University, and he asked me the same thing, and I flippantly said, I think after a certain point they stopped giving and he sort of went, really? And I was like, well, yeah, if you think about it from a perspective of the what women have to go through in the workplace, because they're usually, not always, but quite often will have other conflicting priorities, family, and they tend to take on the brunt of children and things like that, though that is changing. And that pressure throughout their working career, and it all seems to coincide when they're trying to climb the corporate ladder and things like that. And, once they hit 55 and above, usually their children are maybe older, they've gone to university or they're moving out. So there's that. And then someone actually said to me the other day, she's like, women cultivate really wonderful relationships and have a community of people around them. And if men have spent a really long time focusing only on work and not cultivating those relationships, when they start to get to the end of their careers and they haven't got that community of people around them, and all they've had their whole life is work, and work is starting to look like it's coming to an end, that could be a trigger for them not feeling as connected and not feeling as happy in the workplace, because they know that the thing that's been the main focus for so many years is coming to an end. So it's a really interesting, I think, question, and I don't think we actually have a clear answer on what's driving that well-being piece, and certainly something we need to do a lot more research into.
But even
Mm,
the hypotheses you've shared there line up really well with, some of the research around loneliness and disconnection, particularly later in life for men. The
yeah.
the purpose gap that you were describing there, where if someone's sense of self and identity has been largely built around their career for many decades, and then
Mhm.
that's changing. What is my self worth? What is my contribution to the household, if not work? If that's changing there,
Yeah.
and yeah, what you were saying around just like the timeline, I think, 50s is an interesting demographic anyway. There's an
Yeah.
interesting change happening in people's life. As you mentioned, kids are growing up and moving out. Maybe the mortgage is less stressful than it once was, and things feel a bit more secure,
Yeah,
and maybe there's a bit
definitely.
more room to go. What actually makes me happy at work? Am I even
Yes.
doing work that I
Yep.
enjoy?
What do I
I'd be
wanna do?
curious to know if there's like, if we see much in terms of change of career or change of workplace in the 50s as well.
Yeah. Although I was reading lots about, there's still people still feel that there's a bit of age discrimination going on in Australia, well, Australia in particular. I obviously spend a lot of time talking about Australia, around people of a certain age trying to find new jobs and really finding that when they're looking for jobs in their 50s, it's actually really difficult. And so maybe they're all just going, well, we'll just ride this current job out until I retire, and maybe they stop caring as much, or not really. I don't know. Maybe I know that I would usually swear here and say the give it F factor.
Well, you can swear as much as you want here, by the way. I'm all for that. That's fine.
Just
Do they
making
give
sure
less
it's
of a
okay
fuck?
for
Is that what we're
yeah.
saying? 'Cause
They give less of a fuck. Like, what?
yeah,
Like, why spend my time worrying about this? Go to work, do a good job, contribute, but I don't need to go overboard. I don't need to spend all my time focusing on something that's not making me happy. And
interesting.
maybe that's happening. So yeah, it's something I think we need to spend a bit more time looking into. And then once we figured it out, how do we get it to the lower generations? Because it's
Well, and also on that note, this trend of maybe by our 50s, we're starting to go, hey, let's not stress ourselves so much about work. I mean, I think of
yeah.
Bronnie Ware's pioneer study on the common regrets of people on their deathbed. And one of the top
Mhm.
5 most common regrets is, I wish I didn't work so hard.
Absolutely.
So much of our life and identity and time is taken up by our careers and by work, which is why I'm a big believer in what you and your organization do, and
Yeah.
why it's important to focus on happiness at work. But it's also important to go, hey, work cannot be the only thing contributing to our happiness. So this change in our 50s of maybe giving a bit less of a fuck about that.
Yeah.
I wonder as well, I've heard things and seen a few things about maybe that's actually starting in this younger generation too, to your point earlier of like, I don't really care about having a 40-year career at one
Oh,
workplace. I don't really
absolutely.
care about climbing the corporate ladder. I know there's this bit of a trend of like, why would I step into a managerial role for 3 to 5% pay rise when it comes with 50% more stress and responsibility?
100%.
What are
Yeah.
your thoughts around this?
Oh, definitely seeing it. I think that there's 100% it's there that the younger generation, like it's not all about being in one place forever. Like it's just that concept is like just not there anymore at all, which is great. And I think that there's definitely a piece where um, the hiring managers or older generations need to recognize that and recognize that people, well, they're not even jumping jobs, they're just moving and doing something different. It's not a bad thing. Actually, it shows a lot of resilience and it shows their ability to adapt and change that maybe some other people don't have when they stay in certain roles for a long time. So I think that we're definitely seeing that, but yeah, the combination of not needing to climb a corporate ladder, not necessarily wanting to. I know so many people in the last, say, 5 years who have decided, no, management's not for me. I've done it for a while. It's not where I want to be. I just want to be an individual contributor. It's a hard job. I don't get paid that much more money. And I don't feel the need to climb the corporate ladder anymore. It's not the epitome of everything. And we got taught to believe maybe that that's what we should be doing.
Mm.
And people are starting to look at it and go, if I'm happy doing what I'm doing and I'm engaged and I like my job and I like the people that I work with, why can't I just be an individual contributor? I'm making enough money to pay my mortgage and I get to spend time with my family. What's wrong with doing that? And so I think that idea of the perfect career, of climbing a ladder and being the boss, is not there anymore. And to be fair, I think organizations are realizing that they can change the narrative about what career development is. It's not about climbing a ladder. It's about learning skills and learning different ways of doing things. And you can develop in yourself and your career without being a manager and without climbing a ladder. You might get to do different projects. You might get to work different types of jobs. You might get to do secondments into different areas. And all of that builds a really wonderful career and a really diverse group of skill set that you can use in many different ways. And so it's not all about just going up. Sometimes it's zigzagging all over the place.
Yeah, I think over the last few years in particular, but really probably since 2008 financial crash, we've been seeing this acceleration in people changing their relationship with work and
Hmm.
challenging the status quo for what role work has in our life. And
Yeah.
now we need to see almost the other end of like work and leaders and hiring managers and partners and organizations reflecting on what are our expectations of what our employees are and what they do. And actually, I'll give him a shout out. One of our clients runs a family owned food manufacturing business. And I remember saying
Hmm.
to him, like, what is your philosophy of, having great employees? What's your philosophy of work with your team? And he goes, Declan, we're never going to be an organization where the majority of our workforce spends 20, 30, 40 years in our workforce. We're food manufacturing. We have about a 3 to 5 year runway. Yeah, so the way I think about it, I've got 3 to 5 years with these people to hopefully leave a positive impact on them as human beings
Hmm.
and for them to hopefully leave a positive impact on us as a company. And if we can do that, that's success.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was such a refreshing
Yeah,
take
that's
to be like, it's
wonderful.
not about staying together forever. It's about making sure we're
Yeah.
leaving a mutually positive impact on each other. And if that happens and they choose to stay or there's room and we've grown and there's room for them to step up, fantastic. If not, I'm going to write them the best reference ever for their next role.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And it's such a great way to see it because, more often than not, they'll stay a bit longer, right? Like, but if, in all honesty, if you can keep someone for 5 to 6 years, and especially the younger generation piece, you're doing an amazing job. And turnover, I mean, the old school HR way of thinking about turnover, I think, is, less than 10%. We've got to get it down below 10%. Yeah, that's great. And obviously, it costs a lot of money to recruit people and retrain them. But if you're taking that attitude towards it, that means that all of your, I guess, processes and things around training them up and bringing them in is different as well, because you're seeing it in a different way. And we see organizations that are really set up to bring the best out of people as quickly as possible. So we see organizations that maybe spend a lot more time on their onboarding experience because they want to get them up to speed quicker because they know they have a lot of turnover. And it's not about someone coming in and really feeling like a bit of a burden for the whole time. It's like, hey, come in, we've got this program, we'll set you up, we've got you buddies, we're going to do all these things with you. We work with one company that has a 12-month onboarding program and they've got buddies and they've got check-ins, but that's because they want to spend the time investing in them and getting them up to speed and making them feel like a part of the organization. And if they choose to leave in 5 years' time, then they've got a great 5 years out of them. But it's going to keep happening, and I think we'll see it more and more, particularly as obviously the younger generation are getting into a bigger group of employees that we have. When we look at our data now, I think millennials and Gen Zs are making up almost 70% of the workforce that we're surveying.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, it's changing.
Yeah, it is. I'm curious through this period of change, I imagine there's some pretty stubborn myths or misconceptions or notions or ideas that just will not die. They'll just hang in there. Are there any particular myths or misconceptions around becoming a great place to work, having a great employee experience that you wish you could just kind of like click your fingers and just change on
Yeah,
the spot? Or
there's quite a few, but the first one I think of all the time is it doesn't cost any money. We have people, I mean, I come from a HR background, right? So 20 years working in HR and always having to fight for a budget to do people stuff.
yep.
But we see really great organizations making fundamental shifts in how their employees feel about the organization without putting any money into it. Because it's not about, kombucha on tap and beanbag rooms and free lunches for everybody. Your environment will create entitlement, not engagement. It's really about treating people the way they want to be treated. It's, showing trust, showing respect, showing care for people, having great leaders that people trust, and having a great environment where people are proud of what they do and they like the people they work with. And that really creates a fundamentally good or great workplace. We've got great examples of organizations who have done nothing but change leadership and their scores have gone through the roof. And we see things like equity scores. So these are questions we ask around how they feel they're paid, if they're paid fairly, and do they feel that they're getting a fair share of the profits of the organization. So we ask them two specific questions. And we can see with other changes organizations make that those scores go up and they've got no pay rise, they've got no profit shares, they've got nothing different. It's just how those leaders are treating them, how they're respecting them, how they're recognizing the work they put in, giving them autonomy, and genuinely showing care for their people. And those scores change. So it's not about money. It doesn't cost a lot of money to create a great workplace. What it takes is the time and effort to create great leaders, and that makes a difference.
And realistically, like I have this conversation a lot with some of the organizations that we partner with and I speak for. They're probably spending the money somewhere anyway.
Yeah.
Like whether it's being spent on mental health leave, on recruitment, on retention drives, on just wasted time and productivity
hmm
dealing with things that would not happen had people felt valued at work, whether it's lost productivity and performance,
hmm
whether it's missed opportunities with a client experience because people don't want to be at work. Like the money's going somewhere. And so
Absolutely.
we might
Yeah.
as well be proactive and intentional about investing it into our team
100%.
rather
Yep.
than reactive on the back end.
And it's so often reactive. Like it's just, and it's one of those things. I think that's probably one of my biggest frustrations with it all is that we see the reactive piece of organizations going, oh, we've got to do something about this, or we've got to give everyone a pay rise because people are leaving, or we've got to hire new people, we've got to hire this skill set. We've got to, if you stop being reactive to it and actually think about the employee experience you're creating. And think about, the effort you putting into leaders, and are you training them? Are you giving them a space to be a great leader? And that makes a bigger difference. But when you're reactive to it, you're just chasing something that you're never going to be able to attain. You need to really think about it up front.
And to your point of like just treating people the way people want to be treated, like the fundamental human needs of self determination, of
hmm
support, of community, of contribution, the things that make people light up outside the office, they don't just check them at the door. Like it's
Yeah,
not like we start working with it and go, oh, that's right, I'm not a human anymore
yeah,
and I
yeah,
have no human needs.
yeah.
If we can meet those human needs in the workplace, just it shouldn't come as a massive surprise, but I find it still does to people that you're like, hey, if you treat people like people and you meet those core human needs, they want to do their best work. Like fundamentally, I
Exactly.
believe most people, I'm not going to say all, most people want to do good at what they do
Yes.
for a living. I don't think
Yeah.
there's that many people who go, wow, all my human needs are met and I'm just going to take this company for a ride and,
Exactly.
not give anything back in return. I don't think there's many people who want that.
100%. And it's yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's just working in this space for so long or like, why is this not obvious to everybody? Because it feels like it's really obvious because it's that age-old thing, right? Like treat people the way you want to be treated.
Uh-huh.
Like, do you want to be micromanaged? Do you want the boss calling you on the weekend? Do you want, your work belittled? Like, if you don't like that, why would you do that to your team? Like
Mm.
it shouldn't be that hard to understand, but we still see people treating others really poorly. And I'm sure that there's reasons behind it, and there's a lot of pressure in organizations to achieve certain goals and do certain things. But like you said, when people are engaged and they want to and they feel respected and appreciated, they want to do their best work. And we bucket it into three things. So we talk about trust, so trust in the people that you work for, pride in the work that you do and camaraderie with the people that you work with. And not like we're all family here kind of camaraderie, but you really enjoy the people that you work with. You have a bit of fun and things like that. And those three things are all really all it takes to build great relationships and build a place where people want to work.
And as simple as it might say to be like, hey, these are the three things that make a hell of a difference. I know that those are three things that take consistent
Hmm.
focus, effort, prioritization. They're not things that you do one initiative and go, oh,
No.
look at us go. We've nailed
Yeah.
trust. And that's
We're
it.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious because you've obviously worked with organizations over an extended period. So you're
Hmm.
seeing data over a long time. What do you find makes a difference in terms of organizations who go, we're doing really good and therefore we're going to take our eye off the ball versus the ones that go, oh, we're doing really good and therefore we must continue what we've been doing and innovate and change because what got us here won't necessarily get us to the next stage of our employee experience.
So, I mean, if people say, what's one thing we can do to like get there? What's the one thing? And I'm like, well, consistency.
Mm.
That's my answer is always consistency. Create consistency in your leaders, create consistency in how you treat people, see in the effort you are making to create great workplaces because it's not a one and done kind of thing. And so we absolutely see organizations who take their foot off the ball. And in fairness, like to a lot of organizations, it's a really tough thing to always be focusing on that when your macro environment is harsh as well. So obviously, the last 5 years have been a whole lot of things that we never expected, and there's been a lot of changes to workplaces. And so that's caused a lot of workplaces to try and rethink and change the way they're approaching certain things. Um, and interestingly, we actually saw the well-being scores for organizations we work with go up during COVID because we found that organizations put more of a conscious effort on worrying about people's well-being and how they're doing. So we see all their scores go up and then we see a dramatic drop when it goes back, and it's only now starting to creep back up. But organizations, when they take their foot off the ball, it tends to fall very quickly. Like we see dramatic drops in their scores. And I'm thinking of some organizations we may have worked with for 5 or 6 years or even longer, and they'll go, they'll have a 20-point drop in their overall scores in maybe the space of 2 or 3 years, which is a
Wow.
fundamental shift in
Huge.
their employee engagement. And we see it in the comments that they're making and the things that they're saying. And we know that when organizations come to us and go, oh, well, how is that score made up? And they start trying to find excuses for it from us. And I'm like, no, no, this is just what your employees are telling us.
Yeah.
This is something that you can't figure out a way around this score. This is your employees telling us that. So we do see that a lot, and we tend to see what's important to those organizations when that happens. And sometimes what's important shifts. And it is what it is. Organizations make decisions about what's important to them. Um, but what we also see is then the flow-on effect from that kind of a decision, turnover and lower profits and things like that. When organizations are committed, so I can think of one organization that we work with that like, we want to be top 3 best workplaces in Australia. That's our goal. And every year they've creeped up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. It's not huge gains. They're like, but we're seeing that they're coming through with their scores, but then they're sitting down with us and saying, what can we do differently? What
Mm.
is our scores telling us? And what are other organizations doing? And what should we consider when we're planning for the next 5 years? And so we've got these organizations like the executive leadership team sitting down with us going, okay, tell us more, tell us what we can do. And they want that information and they're trying to pull every little drop of information out to go, what can we do better? And they're really listening. And then they're taking all the feedback from their employees and they're thinking about it in the grand scheme of their whole business strategy. Okay, we've got this feedback from our employees. We know that these, 3 things are really important to them. And if we do them better, they're going to appreciate that. How do we build that into our 5-year plan? And so it's not about a new thing that's come through and like, oh, organizations should do AI for this or this for this. They're just sitting there listening to their employees and saying, okay, they've told us that communication is really important. How can we communicate better? How can we talk to them about these things in a different way? So the thought is there and the care is there to take the information and do something with it. And I think they're the organizations that have realized what their employees are saying is part of their business plan. not just an add-on and not just something to do at the back end, that their business plan has to include what to do with their employees. They're the ones we see continuously move up the ladder.
Because the reality is, like, for most businesses and industries, the employees are not only part of the business plan, the employees are the business, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're selling the employees in some way. That's something
Mhm.
that is harder to replicate. It's harder for a competitor to steal. Like, especially if you're a service-based business. Like,
Oh,
at the end of the day,
100%.
that your product is your
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think what inspires me about what you're just saying there is not just the consistency and the curiosity that they're showing by like being like,
Yeah.
what does this mean? What can we do with this? How do we make it better? But also, you mentioned something passing there that I want to highlight to our listeners. You said, what can we do with this to inform our next 5-year plan?
Mhm.
And I've spoken to people about this before. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Part of me wonders if a lot of the challenges that we're facing as a global society are the result of the increasing short-term focus of humanity.
Mhm.
What I
Mhm.
mean by that is, there used to be a time where people would think in terms of, think of the JFK era of, we're going to put a man on the moon, not
Yeah.
because it's easy, but because we said we will. And if that doesn't happen in our lifetime, then that's fine. We're committed to this long term vision that may outlast us.
Yeah.
And now I see an increase in organizations where their leaders are held accountable to a board of directors to show quarterly profit returns in,
Mm.
3-month runs, where we have political leaders who are focused not on the legacy they leave, but on how do I get reelected in 3 to 4 years' time.
Mhm.
And as our attention span is shortened and shortened and shortened, and our goalposts have shortened. I start to worry that, hey, the things that actually really matter, particularly in the workplace, kind of take longer than a year to do. They definitely take longer than a quarter, right?
Yeah.
And so it is encouraging to hear examples of leaders and organizations still thinking that, like, hey,
Mhm.
realistically, this is going to take us 5 years to move the needle on, but we're willing to put in the work and we're willing to think long
Yeah.
term.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, 100%. I think it's definitely we are, we're a reactionary society, but we're not planning ahead. If you've got a 2-year plan, and that's great, but um, the anything to do with people is not quick, right? Like, humans don't change that quickly. Just think about, like, anything you do and, like, trying to change a habit or trying to change anything in your life does not happen quickly. Like, we fundamentally dislike it, right? Like, anything that makes me uncomfortable, I don't really wanna do. And so you think about an organization and trying to change an organization. You'll have organizations, "We're going through this huge transformation project." We're like, "Well, yeah, there's your culture for the next 5 years," right? Like, it's not one of my old jobs was working in org design. I used to do an M&As, and we'd restructure organizations, and we'd change them. Like, a big M&A is 5 to 7 year project, because
Mm,
you don't just merge things together and everything falls out happy at the end. And the same goes for any type of culture change, right? You can't just say, "Hey, be happy." Like, we've given you this thing and there's some beanbags and go be happy now. No, you have to think really genuinely hard about what you want your culture to be, what's really important to you as an organization, and how are you going to support your leaders to get your people there? Because really, they're the fundamental lever that you have to make a great workplace is your leaders. So how are you supporting them? And it's not quick. It's like turning the Titanic, right? Like, it doesn't happen quickly. And so if you fundamentally want to shift or improve a culture in an organization, you have to take time. And if you are making quick changes, it's like, people will say, "Oh, we're going to do our engagement survey or our Great Place to Work survey right after we've paid bonuses." You're like, people are not silly.
yeah.
Well, it also can be a bit fickle. So, the bonus will last about a month, and then they've
Yeah.
paid their mortgage, and then they've still got the same problem they had before. The boss is still, micromanaging them, and it's toxic and they don't like it. Like, then it's not going to change the outcome for the rest of the year. It's not going to improve their performance. It's not going to make them want to come to work.
Mm,
And so, yeah, you have to think more long term when it comes to people. And it still baffles me that people don't see themselves in a workplace, right? Like, you can't just say, "I'm going to change this and it will be better." It's like, well, how would you feel if someone did that to you? And are you going to change your mind that quickly? No. But we don't see ourselves. We just see it as a thing, and it's just a thing but it's a thing full of people. And people have beliefs and ways of doing things and things that are important to them. And yeah, they don't change that quickly. So you have to see this building a great place to work as a really big project or an ongoing project, or just part and parcel of day in, day out. How do we create this workplace where we want people to be, where people want to be, and customers have a great experience? And the wonderful thing we see is organizations that maybe come to us and do their survey and they don't get certified. So a lot of the time people come to Great Place to Work and they'll do their survey because they think their workplace culture is great and they want the badge to prove it. And we have a percentage of organizations that come to us that do their survey and they don't get certified. And they're the really wonderful ones to work with because they've come in and they've said, we think we're okay, but we want to see. And then they do their survey and they're like, okay, how do we get better? And we can work with them over a period of years. And it's so wonderful to see these organizations that are putting the effort in. And it might be 3 or 4 or 5 years that we're working with them. But they go from getting better and better and better. And sometimes they have setbacks and sometimes it's not always roses and wonderful things coming through, but they work really hard at it. It's really important to them. And then they get on like Australia's best workplace list or something like that. The fruition of all that work and effort that they're putting in to create these great workplaces is just amazing to see that actually when you put your mind to it and you put resources behind it and you think about it, it is really possible. It just, takes time and effort.
I imagine those examples and those case studies when that occurs, something that pays off is I can only imagine there be a sense of like shared responsibility and that this is a collaborative pursuit, right? Like I
Mhm.
can't imagine, obviously leaders are critically important on influencing the employee experience, but I can't imagine many organizations make a profound change just from top down policies and just trying to do everything at the executive level. I do imagine this is like, we're doing this together because otherwise
Mhm.
my worry with that is, or my wonder is it could lead to a little bit of finger pointing of like, well, if they did this, be it either the employees are like, well, if the
Yeah.
leaders do this, or the leaders are going, yeah, well, if the team and employees do this, and you just, I remind of that meme of the Spider-Mans all pointing at
Yeah,
each
yeah,
other with the little finger
yeah.
guns, being like, you go first, no, you go first. Actually,
Yeah.
there's a great Zen principle that I love of this idea of everyone complains about the traffic whilst forgetting that they're currently the traffic.
Yeah.
Like if you're sitting in traffic
Yeah, yeah.
complaining about
You
traffic,
are the traffic,
you
yeah.
are in the traffic, which means
Yeah.
the person behind you is complaining about you being
Yeah,
there
yeah.
too. Like we all have a role to improve this. So if you're in your workplace being like, oh man, my workplace is terrible, you are in your workplace.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
this is also
That's
on
it.
you.
Oh,
What are
100%.
your experiences with this in terms of like
Oh, yeah.
creating a bottom up and top down
Oh,
approach to
it
improving the
has to
workplace
be.
experience?
There's no way around it. Like you can't fake a great culture, right? And you can't. And one of my favorite things. It probably sounds a bit evil to say it, but I love being able to talk to a leadership team. So one of the great things is we get to debrief organizations on their culture and we take them through their results. And I do love, we have a really great heat map and we can look at the heat map and it shows all of the factors. And quite often you'll go in and you'll choose a factor and you'll say, hey, this group of people is really happy and thinks everything's fantastic. And this group of people is not so happy. And it happens quite often where you'll go in and you'll look at the executive team and they're all green and they're all sitting at 100% and everyone's super happy. And I have to say to them, you see the red there for your individual contributors, right? They're having a very different experience in this organization than you are. And they all go, "Ooh," when they get a bit contrite. It's really hard. But it's like what you experience is not what they're experiencing. And either you were just saying yes to everything because you wanted good scores, but there's only 5 or 6 of you versus, the 2, 3, 400 or 1,000 individual contributors. The experiences are vastly different. And just because you think you're doing a great job doesn't mean they feel that you are. And so we have to show them and say to them, there is a huge disconnect between what you think this organization is and what they think this organization is. But you have the most ability to influence that outcome. So you guys are going to have to do something with that. And we start with them, but we have to say your next level of leadership is ones that are really going to have to push. That next level, that frontline level of leadership are actually the ones that have more impact on your organization than anyone else. They are the ones you need to focus on because they have that one-to-many responsibility of many, many people that they're impacting. But they also usually are the ones with the least amount of resources, the least amount of sort of power ratio, if you think about it. The ones that are taking the brunt of all the customer stuff, if you've got customers, whatever those customers look like, that middle manager or frontline management is really the ones that you need to focus all your time and energy on to really create a great workplace because they will have your back. If you create a great experience for them, they will create a great experience for their teams. But yeah, it can't just come from the top. It doesn't work that way.
I'm glad you highlighted that importance of like the frontline management and middle management because I know that this is a group of professionals that have profound possibility for
Hmm.
impact on those around them. Like we can quote all the research and stuff that finds that, you know, your relationship with your direct manager has a bigger impact on your health than your family doctor does. Like there's all these insane studies that find that that has such a profound impact on how people feel at work is the direct
Hmm.
managers. And I also know, you know, from findings like the Peter principle, the idea that people get promoted to their point of incompetence and then left to suffer.
Yeah.
Right? In any hierarchical organization, a lot of people end up kind of thrust into middle management or into frontline management, either because they've been there for a certain amount of time, because they were the person who happened to be
Hmm.
next. And it's like, cool, you're in a leadership position now, lead. Or
Yeah.
you're in a management position now, manage. It's like,
Good for you.
how do I do that?
Yeah.
How do I do that well? Right? And as a result, I think that there was one, I read this a while ago, it was a theory that approximately 1 in every 2 people in middle management in Australia would count for the Peter principle, the idea that they've been promoted to a place of incompetence and they don't know what to do next. But they're navigating the tension of like, you can't then put your hand up and go, hey, I don't really know what
Yeah.
I'm doing here. Like, you've given me this promotion. I'm lost. In a lot of
Yeah.
organizations, they don't have that psychological safety to be able to go,
Hmm.
help, I'm lost here. Like, help me out. I don't know. What are your thoughts on how organizations could better approach? Because you mentioned before, you've worked with an organization that has a 12-month onboarding process for new
Yeah.
employees.
Yeah.
Is it the same thing? Do we start looking at 12-month onboarding processes for new managers and leaders?
I think
Or
we definitely have to invest in new leaders.
mm,
And the thing is, we also don't give leaders time and space to be leaders. We say, hey, here's a leadership position, here's 10 people, but also keep doing your day job.
yeah,
Or do like 95% of the job you were doing and just take on these 10 people as a result. And hey, you're promoted, congratulations. The amount of times working in HR over the years, the amount of times I had people come to me and go, hey, this management thing, Beck, it really sucks. I don't really like it. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of mentioned that to you that, really think about if this is what you want to do because it's hard. And you don't have a lot of support as a leader. Most organizations don't have, hey, you're a new leader, here's some training to go through, or here's a buddy that you can buddy up with, or here's someone. And HR tends to be that person for a lot of those people, which, we talk about HR people taking on the emotional brunt of an
mm,
organization. A lot of that comes from leaders who don't know what to do. And, there's very few organizations that really go, hey, we're going to promote you to a leadership position. We're going to take away 50% of the work that you do. Your job is leading people. Like that's your job. I remember my first management role. I remember like 2 months in, I said to my boss, I don't feel like I'm doing a very good job. And she's like, why? What have you been doing? Like, we went through it all. And I was like, I haven't done anything. And she's like, what do you mean you haven't done anything? And I was like, well, I haven't produced anything. I haven't done. She's like, all I do is go to meetings and talk to my team and coach my team. She's like, that's your job. That's your job. You don't have to produce stuff. Your job is to manage the people and coach them and guide them. And we don't have enough leaders saying that to frontline managers. We don't have enough leaders who are able to coach new leaders and say, your job is not all of the stuff. Your job is making sure your people are confident, are coached, are happy, are checking in with them, that they know you trust them, that they feel comfortable, that you're creating psychological safety. That's your job as a leader. And so from a great place to work perspective, we see the really great organizations have really good leadership programs in place, particularly when they're really big organizations. So it's obviously a difference between a small or a micro company and a mid-sized to a very large company. But some of those, particularly in a large scale organization, those organizations that have really great leadership programs in place, we see with really good scores. So they know that being a leader requires a level of training and engagement, and that they're not just going to hit the ground running because they've been promoted and given a new job title. That they really require time and effort invested in them to be the best leaders that they can be, and some grace period to figure it out as well, because it takes a while to figure it out. And even the great leaders have curveballs thrown at them because people are people, and sometimes people are weird,
yes.
and you have to deal with that.
Yeah, 100%. I think I was reminded as you were talking that of the idea that there is not a sport in the world where the coach is permitted to step on the field and score the goals.
Right?
But so many people go, well, hang on, that's what I was rewarded for in my career was I was the goal scorer. And now I'm in
Mm-hmm.
this management or leadership position. And I don't know what my worth is because I'm not scoring the goals. Like, yeah, your job's meant to be to help the players on the field score the goals, right? And make sure they're doing well. But you're not meant to get on
Yes.
the court. Like,
Yes,
stay on
yes.
the sideline. Stay on the
When your
sideline.
sense of achievement has always come from
Yeah.
doing, and then you're
Yeah.
no longer
Oh.
doing, it's a really hard thing to learn to pull that apart from your sense of
Mm,
worth. Like, I was worth something because I was achieving and I was doing the thing, but the
mm,
thing is different now, and the thing
yeah.
doesn't feel the same. And so you really have to shift and change and pull that apart. And I think the other thing that's really interesting um, is, and I say this to leaders all the time, that the expectations you put on yourself as an individual contributor, you can't put on other people. And so we see leaders quite often going, well, I would do it that way. Why aren't you just doing it that way? And they forget that as a leader, everyone's different.
Yeah.
And we see new leaders all the time fall into this trap of going, well, I just would have done it that way. They didn't do it that way, so they're doing it wrong. And because the way I did it, I was successful. So you should do it the same way I did it. And no one teaches them that, that they need to step back and recognize the things that they did and made them successful won't necessarily make everyone else successful. Everyone works differently and everyone has a different way of doing things. And not everybody will be able to do it the same way you did.
Mm.
So you have to sort of pull those two things apart. Um, and organizations are not good at training that into leaders. I think we see some really great organizations putting different programs in place to help leaders learn about different people and learn about how people work. One organization we work with, has just started putting their leaders through, they're in a tech industry. So they've recognized that a lot of their employees are neurodivergent, for example. So they've put not only their leaders through a training program on how to work with people who are neurodivergent, they're also putting all the employees through it. So people are learning how to work differently and learning how to manage people who work differently and not just trying to make everyone look the same as them when they were successful in the job. So it's really interesting when organizations are able to recognize that they have to help leaders get there with understanding that.
Which again comes back to that like sporting analogy of the coach's job is not to be on the field, but to find the best in the players and enable the best in the players.
Yeah.
If we use the same analogy there of you're trying to make everyone in your team perform like you would, it
Hmm.
would be the equivalent of being like, oh, well, I would have just, finished that layup right-handed and gone to the
Yeah.
right-hand side. Why
Yeah.
didn't they do that? It's like, yeah, because they're left-handed.
Yeah.
Their strength is not finishing on that side. Like
Yeah.
the way you approach this is not necessarily their strength. So we need to find their strengths and bring out the best of them and get them to work
Hmm.
together as a team and bring their best to the
Yeah.
table,
But
which is
imagine
a
as
whole
a
different
leader,
skill
you
set.
thought that's what you had to do, that your job as
Yeah.
leader is to make everyone lay up on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
And no one's told you any different. And
Right?
so that's what you're just trying to force people down.
Yeah.
Like, no, go do it
You're
this
drilling
way.
it for hours,
Like,
hours a day.
and
And
it's
you're
just
like,
not
why is it not
working.
working?
Yeah. And you're like, no, but no one's told them. That's
Yeah.
not like, and so that's kind of where we're at with so many organizations. Like, just
Mm,
actually spend some time teaching your leaders how to be leaders. And you'll
yes.
actually get an amazing outcome when you do that. So it's interesting.
I would love to, we could talk about this for hours, but as we sort of near the end of the episode, I would love to get a message of hope for the future from you. And I do this for our audience's sake, B, for my sake, because as much as, I've spent my career studying happiness and I'm known as that happiness guy, part of me, particularly in this field where it comes to like our relationship with work, what workplaces look like, being fully transparent, part of me does worry that we missed a really ripe opportunity off the back of COVID. That
Mm,
there was such a dramatic change in how we work. There was such a ripe opportunity to start looking at, hey, maybe flexible working arrangements make sense. So many organizations who went,
mm,
we could never work from home, all of a sudden started being able to work remotely. Organizations that went, there's no way we could do a 4-day work week,
yeah.
started doing a 4-day work
Yeah.
week, and
Yeah.
things were like possible. There was this real sense of
Yeah.
this is forcing change that needed to happen anyway, which inspires me and excites me. And then part of me goes, oh, I just feel like we're just going back to the way things were. We're so desperately clinging on to this is the way things worked pre 2020.
Hmm.
Therefore, this is what we will return to.
Yeah.
I guess I'm asking you to either confirm that misery with me and we'll wallow together, or give me a bit of a sense of hope of like, hey, this is what we're seeing that maybe gives a positive indication for where the future of work is looking.
Yeah. Look, unfortunately, I think there are still some of those organizations that are doing that. Um, but from my perspective, I think that I would say that I'm hugely excited by the generational shift in our organizations because I think that that will actually make a huge, huge difference. And we're starting to see it, to be honest, quite a lot that, things like flex work is just a given in the workplaces, the best workplaces that we work with. So many of them have, work from anywhere policies or flex work and organizations that you would never think about being flexible or thinking about how to do it differently. Like one of the best ones I can think of is Hilton, right? And they're like front of house staff, right? But they've found a way to work with their employees to create flexibility that matters to them. And it's not about being in an office or being at home or whatever. It's about what works for your employees and giving them the autonomy to be able to work their life and their work together. Work shouldn't be the thing that makes life hard. It should be the thing that you work, meld in between with all of it together to make things work. And so, from my perspective, the workplaces that we work with are doing amazing things. Um, and understanding that their employees have lives and that they have an impact on those lives. And so they're trying to do really great, wonderful things for their employees, but then that also has a ripple effect to their business. And so the really smart leaders and smart organizations have figured that out. And I think from my perspective, we have so much data that shows it now. So you'd have to have your head in the sand to think that really putting people back into the office 5 days a week is going to be good for your business. You genuinely, that's a you thing more than a company thing, right? Because all the data shows that actually it doesn't work. So I think I have hope that there are enough really wonderful organizations out there that are doing amazing things, that are talking about it and influencing other organizations. And that we also have a really wonderful new generation of leaders coming through who have seen and grew up through COVID and know what's possible. And when they get into leadership roles, they're going to make changes. So I think that as we see the old guard move on, we will see a shift. And the smart leaders know, they know what to do to get their organizations working well. And the fact is, in a rough economy, it tends to, I guess, bring out the best in the good organizations, right? They have to do more with less. The best way to do that is to have a really happy group of employees. It's that simple. So I think that we will see a shift in organizations for the better. And hopefully in Australia, sometimes we can be a little bit behind in some of these things, but we've got some really wonderful organizations who are out there shouting it from the rooftop about all the wonderful things they're doing. And I think that they're going to influence a lot of the others. And we've got so many startups as well. And people who want to work in organizations that treat them the way they want to, so they're starting their own organizations. So I think that we'll see a lot of shifts. So I definitely have hope. I also have hope because we have way more organizations working with us than we have in the past. Every year we're getting bigger. And so these are people that want to, go, hey, we're a great workplace. We want people to know we're a great workplace. We want to be on the list that says we're the best in Australia. So we see that happening. We're like, yeah, there are a lot of organizations out there that really want to do good. So I think we'll start to see a big shift.
Yeah, which is a really positive sign and one that's, lifted my spirits a bit from where I was looking down the future, which is nice. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Speaking of more and more organizations partnering with you and working with you to measure it, to be held accountable to it, to intentionally focus on their employee experience, not from a sense of perfectionism and us needing to do everything right, but from the sense of, hey, we want to, find a way to improve and to get better, and with this sense of progress over perfectionism. Let's say there's some people who have listened to this conversation today and are like, I think we might be in a position to go for that.
Yeah.
Can you give us a real brief on what that process looks like and entails and how they can best start that journey with you?
Yeah, super easy. So basically, come and have a chat to us. So go to greatplacetowork.com.au. But essentially, once an organization signs up with us, we set them up. They can be set up within a week, 2 weeks. All they do is essentially put a data file of all their employees in. We get their employee email addresses. They all get sent the survey. The survey is 60 questions. They can do that. Look, if anyone took more than 10 minutes to do the survey, I'd be a little bit worried. So it's super quick and easy. And as soon as they've hit their threshold, so there's a number of employees that have to fill it out for them to be certified, and they have to hit a certain point. So of those 60 questions, they have to, altogether, the aggregate of those, they have to hit a minimum number to be certified as a great place to work. to be eligible for the list, so the best workplaces lists that we do, they need a more employees to fill it out. So they have to have a higher threshold. But the minute they hit those thresholds and the survey closes, so the survey is usually open for 2 weeks, survey closes, they get their badge straight away. They get to be able to tell everybody immediately that they're a great place to work. So it's actually a really quick and easy survey to do. We have a lot of organizations that'll say use our survey and another survey throughout the year. So they use like a pulse check, but then they also get their badge to be able to really, and it's a kind of a pride point, right? To be able to go out there and put it on their email addresses, and they put it on their website and say, hey, we're a great place to work. Like, come work for us or come work with us. Because our employees are happy and they're treated well. So it's actually really quick, a really quick little survey. Get your employees to fill it out, and yeah, you can have a little badge that says you're great. And the amount of times we have people say to us, I was talking to someone the other day and he has their badge on their background for Zoom. I said, oh, I like your badge. He said, you wouldn't believe the amount of people that talk to me about this. He's like, it's amazing. And the amount of candidates we have that apply and say, hey, I'm applying for your company because it said you're a great place to work. You've got a badge. And at least I know I can trust that because it's external. It's not them tooting their own horn. Yeah, it's nice. And it's a great way then to get further data to go, okay, what can we do better? How do we keep improving? What are our employees saying? So it's nice.
And there's two things in particular that really stand out to me and impress me about that process. One is the reality is it's probably going to cost them more time and money to try to do an internal survey of their staff, and they're going to get worse results. So for the sake of saving yourself time and money to get something that's externally validated and probably higher quality, why wouldn't you? The other thing I really like about it is my hope is it starts creating downward pressure on entire industries. I'm a firm believer that the happier organizations become, the better it is for society and the better it is for a world as a whole.
100%, yeah.
And if we see, off the top of my mind, like an architecture firm get, recognized and certified as a great place to work, and they start getting the best candidates from each grad year of university, all of a sudden there's downward pressure on their competitors to lift their game as well. And what this starts to become is like hopefully this downward pressure to change in not only entire workplaces, but entire sectors and industries. So
yeah,
thank you
That's
for
why we
the
do our
work that you and your
lists
team
as well.
do. Yeah. It's something that I think is very meaningful work. So I really appreciate the work that you and your team are doing. And for everyone listening to this, we'll put the link in the show notes as well to go check that out and start the process. I highly, highly recommend it. And I'm just really excited to see how this evolves and continues. I think you're right. We are still in a really interesting time period of change in people's relationship with work. As much as part of me thinks we've missed some of the opportunities, I think there's room to then take other opportunities, as you said. And I'm just looking forward to seeing how, ideally, the world of work, particularly here in Australia and New Zealand, becomes a little bit happier and more organizations become great places to work.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And just like that, we have reached the conclusion of yet another episode here on How to Be Happy. I'm always encouraged when someone can inspire me and give me more hope for the future of work and for the future of happiness in our workplaces. That was such an engaging and insightful conversation. A huge thank you once again to Rebecca Moulynox for sharing her wisdom and passion for creating better workplaces across Australia and New Zealand, and really globally. I think the advice of treating people like people is relevant no matter which area of the world you are tuning in from. If today's episode did spark something in you, I would encourage you to please subscribe to the show, leave a review, and share it with someone you know who cares about building better workplaces and a better employee experience. It does help us spread the ripple effect and make more workplaces happier and therefore society happier. And if you're ready to take the next step and explore what it means to become a certified great place to work, or you just want to keep learning from Rebecca and her insights, be sure to follow her on LinkedIn and connect with the team at Great Place to Work Australia, New Zealand. We have the links in the show notes, so you can click those and access their wealth of tools, research, and real-world support to help your organization stand out by putting your people experience first. Until next time, keep building happier workplaces, keep spreading the ripple effect, stay curious, and keep learning. Remember, happiness matters.